I'm Antje LEHMANN-BENZ, and I'm joined also today by Philipp DIEBOLD. Hi,
Hello.
Philipp. Yeah, maybe it's a really quick intro. The two of us are working together with Atlassian in the European Disciplined Agile Trainer team, instructor team. So we offer training. In my case, I'm also been a volunteer for what feels like ages in the Southern Germany chapter, and now became part of the overall Germany chapter because we recently merged into one chapter. And I'm also a Disciplined Agile chapter champion there, as it's called, so representing a bit or being a liaison a bit between the Germany chapter and Disciplined Agile, the Disciplined Agile team at PMI. And we also, together with Frank Tassone, who is the CEO of ALVISSION, we also host a community of practice for Disciplined Agile. So if you're interested in any knowledge sharing across chapters, we're also here for that, and we'll happily do that. In my regular life, I'm a trainer and coach for project management and agile approaches, and I also work right now as a practitioner in a large-scale Scrum environment. So disciplined agile comes in very handy sometimes, and we'll talk about that a little bit in just a bit. Philipp, would you like to say some words about yourself too?
Yes, I tried even as short as you did. My name is Philipp Diebold. I'm also part of the Disciplined Agile Europe group team, whatever you call that, and working a lot together with Frank Tassoni and the ALVISSION team. And me and myself founded an own company regarding agile coaching consulting. So this is why we are kind of working there. I did my PhD in more or less a similar approach than Disciplined Agile, about finding the right agility for your project, for your team at Fraunhofer, a large German research or applied research company. And yeah, I'm happy to be here today and give you some insights in Disciplined Agile, answer some questions, doing some interactions. And I think, Antje, the best thing is just to start, right?
It is, I agree. So let me share my screen. We have brought something with us today that some of you might be familiar with, probably not everyone. In case you haven't used it before. Yeah, about the cameras, we'll do that. The bandwidth might be even a bit more an issue, or sometimes it's also processing speed of computers that might become sometimes an issue if you now join me on this Miro board. So it's an interactive online whiteboard. Maybe you've used it before in your teamwork. If not, greatly recommend something like this at least. Always really nice to do together with larger crowds. Not all of you have to, of course, join. It will be quite, yeah, full when everyone that's who's watching this session right now joins. So you can also feel free, if right now you don't have a browser available where you can just go to a Miro board quickly, you can also just watch on my shared screen. Then, of course, however, you cannot participate in the interactive part. So this was announced today as an interactive session, and we want to hold our word and be true to that promise. And yeah, give you some opportunity to work interactively with us. So if you try to move that board, just simply on somewhere where it's gray, in the gray area, just click there, and your mouse cursor should turn into a hand. And then you can just move the board around, and you can try to come over here where I am, which is a bit more to the right, where it says, "Welcome to the workshop, Disciplined Agile." Some people are finding me. That's great. Just see if you can find me. You can also use the zooming tools, the zoom tools that are, so board zoom in, zoom out tools that are at the bottom right corner of the screen that can help you zoom in, zoom out to find us here. And I would just, those of you who are in the board with me, again, if that doesn't work for you, don't panic, just watch on screen, or you can even tell me in the chat where you would like to place your dot, and that's fine too. But whoever found us and can feel like they can, yeah, contribute to this board, please do so and tell us, in your opinion, how do you realize projects within your organization right now? Zooming in a little more. So you guys can also see it if you're just watching the screen sharing. Please place your dots. There are some dots here on the left side. Just grab a dot and place it and see if or decide if you want to, if you see yourself more on the traditional project management side or more on the agile project management side. And that can be anything ranging from Scrum through Lean to Kanban or our own agility, like Philipp would probably support that. Where do you get the link? I'll repeat it in the chat. Yeah. And if you're drawing something on the board accidentally that you didn't want to draw, Control Z, hitting Control Z or Z always works.
Or just leave it. We are happy to have some drawings at the end.
Sure. You can also do that. Yeah, this is just really to add some nice interactive touch to it. So no technological pressure should arise from this. If it doesn't work for you right now, or there's just no way for you right now to do this, no problem at all.
And even during the session, during the next kind of 45 minutes, you see that we have also prepared some post-its where you can post some questions. If you have any questions during the session, please post them first in the chat or in the post-it so that the one of us, so Antje or me, who's not speaking, can kind of check both things and see whether the question should be answered at the end or directly during the session, because sometimes it's better to keep with the flow and answer the things at the end.
Definitely. I just found out the drawings were actually on in the Zoom screen sharing. So you can't be able, you won't be able to do anything if you're just looking at my shared screen. You would have to open the board using the link in the chat yourself in your own browser window, and then you can edit the board. That's why.
But I think we can even go on if we have, what, 20 dots already?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. This is to give us a first impression. If you're not able to find the section we're in, please use the Zoom tools. So to zoom in and out of this board at the right bottom corner of the window of your Miro browser window, where you have Miro open, and you can, for example, click on Fit to Screen, and then you should see everything, and then you can zoom in again. You can also hit the Control button, use your mouse wheel, things like that to zoom in and out. Just see if that works for you. Okay, and we can see that we have indeed, of course, there's a lot of people here, so a lot of movement on the board. That's also pretty cool to watch. We can see that now we have a lot of people on both sides of the spectrum. So we do have people here who use traditional project management or claim that this is their perception, and also according to their own self-assessment, and also agile project management. However, we have some real experts here too who use that a lot. So that's very interesting. Feel free to add to this as we go through the presentation for today. So I will now switch over in my screen sharing, at least, to the presentation. But you can still use that board. So it's not closed or anything. As long as you follow the link, you can still go there and add your dots. Okay, but in my screen sharing, I am now showing our presentation for today. I've brought with me a quick introduction to Discipline Agile. So as we just saw, this gave us not maybe the complete picture of the audience today, but it gave us a good understanding of a couple of you who said, yeah, we're on both ends of the spectrum, so Disciplined Agile might be extremely interesting for you, which is probably also why you joined. But then let's first of all discover together what Disciplined Agile is. So what is it? How can it help you? Take a bit of a closer look, seeing how much time we get for that, and how to do better by evolving our way of working with Disciplined Agile. A couple more learning resources and a short summary that I will also share with you guys today. Again, feel free to still browse around the Miro board. You can there, by the way, also find the slides used today. Maybe you already discovered them. You can ask your questions, like Philipp just said. So feel free to use the Miro board to add your questions. If that seems a bit too tricky right now, or you can't access Miro, of course, you can also access them, ask your questions also in the chat. And we will make sure to make some time at the end to try to provide answers to your questions to the best of our abilities. Yes, of course, the presentation will be shared with you guys. Some of you now have the possibility to already use the visualizations on the Miro board for that, but we will definitely also just share a good old-fashioned PDF with you guys. So after this event today. Okay, yeah, and we have great people here to help us from PMI Luxembourg today who are keeping an eye on the chat, so nothing should get lost. What is discipline agile? First of all, there's one really important word that is even in red here, in red font, because it's so important. It is not another framework. That's really what the disciplined agile founders want you to also see. And like to emphasize that it's a toolkit, actually, because it isn't just focused on one way to do things, on one framework, such as Scrum, for example, could be called. So, or also refers to itself. So here we have a comprehensive toolkit. That means we have a collection of things that we could do in disciplined agile that are kind of taken together from all kinds of frameworks and ideas and things that we just know work. They've been taken together and made available for you as a comprehensive toolkit for everyone who works in agile teams, or for everyone also who works in agile transformation and tries to get towards more agility in their projects and in their project environment and in their whole organization. So the underlying theories are those that you might be familiar with, of flow, of lean. So really thinking about waste reduction and elimination. How can we detect waste? How can we eliminate that? How can we make sure we only focus on what's really essential and what's needed? How can we simplify our approaches in a way that makes sense, of course, and to an extent that we can get our teams to work in a kind of flow. So to really get into that constant flow of value delivery. That's what the theories of flow and of lean, specifically lean management, lean manufacturing, if you know it, have looked at for decades. And now Disciplined Agile tries to get that together and offer it to the Agile world, offer it to you as practitioners to actually also benefit from that, because it's so important for Agile teams to get to this point. Theory of constraints is another theory. It's decades old, but still applicable. Again, eliminating bottlenecks, eliminating waste, all of these things. And overall, of course, also organizational development is something DA looks at. So here, DA really tries to give you straightforward guidance and help you make better decisions. That means it cannot just, Discipline Agile cannot just offer you a toolkit. Here you go. Those are like your hundreds of tools. Have fun. That's not what they do. But they want to really give you also guidance to how to actually use that and how to make your best decisions. Like, okay, with my team, we're right now in this tricky situation or challenge. Which kind of tool can help us? So DA also, what kind of solution approach can we try to get to improve that? Discipline Agile really tries to give you concrete guidance on these things. And we call that finding a team's way of working, finding your own way of working, or WOW. And that's also why Choose Your WOW is the title of the leading guidebook for Disciplined Agile that you can, as a PMI member, download for free as your own personalized PDF from pmi.org, by the way.
Antje,
Yeah.
probably this is exactly the right point to answer the first question which came in the chat. It's
okay.
So what is DA? Is it just a mixture of all traditional practices of the 20th and the 21st century methods and frameworks and all?
I wouldn't say it's just a mix. That sounds a bit too easy. I think what they've done is really they put some of their brain work into really making sure it's a really good set of practices, a really good toolkit that is comprehensive, that encompasses whatever we and the DA founders especially, and the people working to develop DA think is valuable, can work in certain situations, both for teams who are just starting on their way to being more agile and organizations, and for teams who are already there, like really facing some high-level challenges or some more expert challenges for agile teams, so that we answer all of these people's, or try to answer them, try to give solutions, possible solutions, of course, to all of these people. Of course, in the end, it's still up to the people implementing all these tools to see if they can make them work for them. But disciplined agile just goes one step beyond what traditional, more traditional agile frameworks offer in this regard. What would your answer be, Philipp?
I would totally agree with your answer, and I even would add something, which is it is also adding you a kind of decision support on where you should end at the end. So it's not only having this kind of collection of all these different practices, methods, methodologies, frameworks, and all these things. It also gives you the guidance besides your knowing your context. So we will talk about some of the things like context counts and those things, but having this information, it gives you also the idea of where you should end, what should be kind of your solution based on agility. And I think that's even something which is disciplined agile brings with us, and which is more than just a mixture or a combination or a set of all these different methods, frameworks, practices, and all these things.
Yeah, thank you. And then I can also go maybe to Carlos' question, who asks what's the difference between the DA toolkit then and the Lean toolkit. Well, first, Lean for me is more of a management approach, but in the end, a lot of what Lean believes in, or what are really Lean foundational values, are also, of course, believed in by the Agile community. So there's a lot of elements that we also find in Lean that we also find in DA, but it's not just that. DA is more really focused on not just being lean, but also really helping Agile product delivery and product development teams know what's important from Lean, but also how to find their perfect life, or their best fitting, let's say, life cycles and ideal life cycles that they should use and things like that. So there's a lot more to disciplined agile with regards to agility and team and organizational agility than Lean brings with it. But Lean elements are still very important, considered important, and are also a part of this whole disciplined agile toolkit. Therefore, Getjan, you're asking about an Atlassian community. I think that wasn't a misunderstanding. I am involved in some of those, but I didn't mention that. So I mentioned a community of practice for disciplined agile practitioners that we have in our chapter. And yeah, reach out to me if that sounds interesting to you, of course, but that would be somewhere else offline. Okay. An umbrella overall of Agile is basically what we're talking about. You see here the three creators of Disciplined Agile, actually the two first faces you see there are Scott Amblers and Mark Lyons. They created Disciplined Agile as we know it today, and by now over time. So Disciplined Agile, first of all, was acquired by PMI in 2019, and in the process, also Al Shalloway joined that Disciplined Agile executive team, who are now all part of PMI. Al Shalloway is the last guy you see down here. He's the creator of, let me see, like that. He's the creator of the Flex framework or Flex model, which has now also become a part of Disciplined Agile. And he's also the PMI director of Agility at Scale. So he's basically also helping Mark Lyons and Scott Ambler to put Disciplined Agile also in this direction of helping teams get to their ideal flow, helping teams improve their flow. He's really also an expert on that. If you follow, that's for any of these three guys, but if you follow also Al Shalloway on LinkedIn, for example, you will find some fascinating posts and videos that he's posting and content he's publishing on all of that. And of course, the same is true for Scott and Mark. They're all big names in the Agile space and have been for decades. Yeah, Scott and Mark actually came from an IBM background where they worked on agile modeling and such in the 1990s. So they've always been in touch also with the people who created the Agile Manifesto and things like that. So we know that the source of discipline Agile is also really substantial one. Okay. So that was what is disciplined agile and how can disciplined agile now help you? That will be the next question. Some of you guys on the mirror board indicated that you're working in agile teams. Some of you indicated you're more on the predictive side, but even then, maybe disciplined agile can offer you something to help you transform a bit more to agility, or at least take some of the benefits that agile ways of working offer and also make those work for your more traditional waterfall project setups. Who knows? So with the DA toolkit, you can better optimize your teams. Reason being that your organization is a complex adaptive system. So that means there is a perfect understanding often of the individual parts of such a system, but you don't automatically have a good understanding of the whole system behavior. So this might resonate now with some of you. Probably we feel the pain of team members who feel like they're a bit isolated in one of these organizational areas, for example, that we see here, where they know that the projects they work on, there are whole enterprise teams really also working on that. There are people from finance involved somehow. There are people in other organizational areas working on that, but it's really hard to get the big picture, to get the overall approach. They're making it extremely complex because we have a dynamic network of people interacting and of interacting teams. And this is just an enterprise internal view. What happens if you even have team members from other organizations? Of course, the complexity rises even more. It's so hard to predict in such situations what each individual team will do. So we do hope that everyone is working towards, pleasing and delighting their customers and creating real value for their customers. But sometimes we just don't know. It's also adaptive because individuals and teams self-organize, they learn from their experiences, they hopefully learn also from the experiences of others. At the same time, having to make sure that one team doesn't already apply a learning that another doesn't even know of, right? So that this knowledge is also shared, that these learnings are shared, and that people work together, that there is no double work or lack of information or transparency. So Disciplined Agile really tries to look at all of this. They also are currently even working on improving even more what Disciplined Agile has to offer, for example, to procurement departments and finance departments and things like that, that are not within just the IT, because that's also a bit of a problem sometimes, that, you know, IT is maybe super agile because they did their agile transformation already in some organizations. Other parts of the organization are still left out in that and aren't really understanding what's going on with that increased agility. So with Disciplined Agile, we also really try to get everyone on board and try to make people align between teams, not just within one team. So the danger maybe also sometimes with frameworks such as Scrum, as good as they are, is that they're often not enough. That's all we're saying here. That you might then just look at how to improve one project, one team even, where there's so many other things in the organization that have to be taken into account. And we have to take a step back and look at the big picture. And Disciplined Agile encourages people to do that. Number two
Antje,
is
probably exactly during the aspect regarding getting a step back and checking the overall organization, I would just put one question into account, which we have on the Miro board, which is when we look at the empirical approach, which is part of agility, where do we find a good receptive area in an organization to introduce disciplined agile, or do we wait for an organization to ask for DA?
Wow, nice question.
It's not my question, you know.
So no, I get it. Thank you for spotting it and reading it. I would have to think about it a bit because that's actually a question I'm also dealing with on almost a daily basis. I think if we wait, that's my personal opinion now. I think if we wait for people to realize there is such a thing as disciplined agile, we might risk that they might not know about this. So we're still working to improve disciplined agile's visibility in the world. It's been there for a longer time. It's always been great, in my opinion. I really like it personally, and I can work with it and achieve successes. But I think the fact that I think it's just the fact that it's not known everywhere yet. So some people, especially here in Europe, where we are, Munich, where I am, I go to organizations. I ask them, "Have you heard about disciplined agile?" They will always shake their heads, no. So bit different, by the way, in US and Canada, but we also have to bring it to the rest of the world. So that's why I would probably not want to wait. If you have the access to people who can make decisions here, I would indeed bring it up. If people are looking for something that could help them with specific struggles that we're touching on right now. We're just doing a foundational basic introduction right now, but we're already talking about some typical struggles. And if you feel like your organization is facing those and you can do something about it, maybe, then I would suggest you just try it out. And probably you would want to get more information. We have a whole Agile week ahead of us, but also maybe some training on top of that or other resources. We'll point you to resources at the end of this presentation that can help you there. But, just try it out, see if it helps you, and maybe also bring it to the attention of people who might be in the position to have to make decisions here, to look to solutions. So the good thing with Discipline Agile is it doesn't matter if your team is already, if your organization is already trying to do a safe transformation, for example, or any other scaling framework. So any approach that's already out there and quite popular. Discipline Agile can still help you. That's why they're agnostic. So they say, we don't care where you are right now. We're going to look together at where you stand, and then we can work on it from there. That's why it's a great resource, even if your organization has officially subscribed to several agile approaches already. That's not a contradiction. What would you say, Philipp?
So first of all, from my point of view, the question is not disciplined HR related. When we talk about whether to wait for an organization to ask for agility, doesn't matter whether disciplined HR, safe, or what kind of agility, I would say it's always too late to wait for the organization to ask for something like that. Because if an organization asks for something, they are already in trouble. But when we talk about process improvement or all these things or organizational change, you should do that before, because you know that sometimes this trouble will come. So from that point of view, I would say, no, you shouldn't wait. You should kind of start with such things even before. And to give another interpretation of a good area in an organization to introduce disciplined HR, from my point of view, it could be any level. So you could start with a small kind of single team or single department. The only thing is, when we talk about good things to start, there needs to be some kind of support by the management. That's from my point of view an important thing, and probably this would be a good area to start, because you need to motivate them. And from my point of view, these kind of support from the management doesn't only mean that they say, yes, we want to get an HR organization. There must be more. They really need to understand the approach. That would be at least my answer to that question.
Yeah, great answer. I so agree. So number two, how does DA help us? The DA toolkit also enables us to extend agility beyond teams to the entire organization, as we already said. So business agility looks at the entire enterprise, not just between teams, as we saw in the previous slide, but also the entire enterprise, not just selected entities here. So this is the DA process blade chart, where we address specific organizational capabilities such as finance, for example, people management, data management, and so on. We have a foundation layer here at the bottom that captures fundamental skills and knowledge required for business agility in general. And we also have a disciplined DevOps layer that captures how to streamline solution delivery in an enterprise. Here, of course, this goes more towards tech solutions, more towards IT solutions. But as you can see, this is embedded now in the organization and in approaches that can help the entire organization grow. And that would be the value stream layer. So the value stream layer being the idea that, when we want to deliver value, it doesn't make sense if we have one great agile IT team somewhere in our organization who deliver really fast, if the rest of the organization is, for example, very slow or doesn't understand what the customer needs or has trouble coordinating activities with each other. So all the fast delivery is then for nothing and is actually also not really creating any value. So we have to make sure the entire organization understands their value streams. So where do we start? Understanding the requirements that come from our customer base, and what is then going to be our outcome at the end of what we are building, at the end of that process of when we're building something, and how do these things align with each other? So how do we create a constant stream of value that starts with understanding what we need to build and ends with delivering that, hopefully in a timely manner, to those people who need the solution? And that's the approach we're looking at, or we're taking also in Discipline Agile, is to understand the entire value stream for for a product. And then, of course, also across the enterprise. And in large organizations, that is not a trivial feat. We're talking about large scale agile transformations. For big corporations, that can, of course, take time. It doesn't happen overnight, also not with Disciplined Agile. It's just that Disciplined Agile tries to take that systemic view and systemic approach and help people, take a step back, as we said, from the single team level and really focus on the entire enterprise while still not leaving the single teams alone. That would be a danger, of course. If we focus too much on enterprise view and strategies and things like that, the teams might then again feel alone at some point. So we have to really manage to create that balance between looking at what a single team needs with their given challenges and also what the entire organization needs. But we're always coming from a point of view that we think those things should be aligned. What a team struggles on and works on a daily basis should be aligned with what the organization struggles with and works on in the bigger picture, and should always be, there should be also communication between all of the people involved, going back and forth, and alignment and common understanding. And Disciplined Agile doesn't claim to give you that kind of feeling overnight perfectly especially not for large enterprises, but they can help also large enterprises to try to understand their complexity better and work with agile in a more agile transformations in a more systemic, in a more meaningful way.
And I think exactly that question answers already two questions which we have in the chat. One is about whether Disciplined HR also deals with business agility. And I think, Antje, you did a great job with answering that question without knowing that question. So great and happy to have that. And the other question is about whether you would need persons in marketing and operations and finance and legal and so on and so forth, or am I thinking too much in persons and knowledge? And I think even that question is a good, that slide is a good slide to answer that, because from my point of view, you see already the boxes with finance, with people management, with IT, enterprise architecture, which is not the architecture of kind of software tool. So it's more about an organizational structure. And so from that point of view, yes, you need those people to some extent to get to in business agility. So from that point of view, I would totally say, yes, you need those people, but be aware that probably we are not talking about the people or the roles. We are talking about kind of their their knowledge and their kind of Eigenschaften, their characteristics which they have, and how we can use them in these kind of agile organization. But from my point of view, I would say yes, for sure they are part of the organization. And when we talk about business agility or disciplined agile enterprises, for sure they are part of that, and we need those people.
I agree. Yes, we need good people. Doesn't mean it has to be someone working in finance. It can also be a good coach working with them, of course. The whole idea here is don't forget people in finance. Don't forget people in business operations. Don't forget people in marketing. Because if we do, then all of the agility we achieve in IT departments, maybe for now already, I'm just always using IT because that's where most agile transformations start. Is then maybe, a bit void, is a bit for nothing, or the effect kind of evaporates. And I think we see that also a lot. So the Discipline Agile Toolkit, third reason how it can help you is it lets you accelerate value delivery in scaled agile situations. And in essence, that's already what we addressed. What I really like is this picture. You might also like it. I personally like it a lot. It helps us understand once more our team here. It's now for one team, our team's situation. So for example, with this picture, with this flowchart, we can try to understand or how complex our team setup is. And I already mentioned, if you have people coming from different companies together, that raises complexity. And that's actually addressed here in this organizational distribution arm of this chart. So look at your team size, look at geographic distribution of your team, look at organizational distribution, look at compliance issues in the product you have to develop in your project. How life critical is it? Life critical can be if you're working in medical equipment production, also software, for example, for that environment, or aircraft industry, everywhere where the people's lives will later be at stake if something goes wrong here, if it goes really bad. And technical complexity, how high is that? I think this resonates also with a lot of people, I'm sure. To think about that first. And then domain complexity, how complex is the topic we're working on? Are we trying to produce something new for, a world that we already create a new product for a world that we already understand and know pretty well? Or are we actually doing a greenfield development where we're really looking at creating something new that no one has ever done before, software for a self-driving car or AI topics or things like that. And then we can get to very complex or even chaotic if we really don't know what we're doing. So as you can maybe already tell, if you could, for example, do the exercise, you could even use the mirror board for it if you like, and play a bit with that, but that's only optional. But you can kind of rate your own project right now if you want on the axis here that you see, and think about, okay, how complex is my project actually? From there you can make different decisions, because if you're somewhere here in the inner part of this circle at the end, then it's a bit more straightforward. It's not too complex. You can still use also maybe waterfall, predictive, traditional project management planning, and go really far with that. The more complex it gets, you might need some more agility, especially here. Maybe also, if you're, I don't know, in the same time zone or something, but not in the same building, you might have to introduce agility, but you have to also combine it maybe with some more predictive tool sets or tools that from more predictive project management to get people together. So this really helps you think about the combination. So the more complex a project gets, the more agility it might need, because the more adaptive you have to be. At the same time, the more sometimes elaborate your planning and your leadership of the teams, if you're the project leader, for example, has to be. So this is the huge challenge that we're looking at. We're trying to become more agile. At the same time, we don't all face situations that are too easy to oversee, which is also a reason why agility is necessary often in the first place. as in being more adaptive, creating plans that can be really quickly adapted and can stay flexible. So this self-assessment for your team already helps you make decisions, right? For example, you're working on a complex solution or even a straightforward solution that is new and standalone, no compliance, single division, small team, but you're co-located, not co-located, sorry, dispersed across different geographical locations. Then you can already think about choosing maybe even a more simple agile framework, such as Scrum, for example, that you not simple to always to implement, but you know, gives you clear guidance on the process framework to set up and things like that. But you might need additional tools to account for the different locations that you have. And there you can turn to the Disciplined Agile Toolkit to find further orientation that Scrum doesn't give you. So this is the idea here of Disciplined Agile.
And let me add something to that, because Michael is asking a question whether the best fit for agility is the middle of this picture. The more you go outside the middle, the more classical project management is better way. Is that true, Antje? What would be your opinion on that first?
I know it's not the best answer that people always want to hear, but it depends. I would say, yes, you could definitely, you know, I'm have been involved in both more traditionally managed and agile projects, and I see the value in both, and I don't think we should just move away from traditional and that's it. I think if we have something completely on the outside, then just using Scrum is not enough. So that would be my very blunt statement here. However, I would still try to use as much as I could from agile approaches, from agile elements of working. And only if really the agile world leaves us alone, no answers given to our challenges, then we can also look at maybe what more traditional project management would have suggested us to do at that point. That's how personally I do agile transformation for myself, is to really look back at what did we already know before, what were things we've done for decades that have worked and that are great things to do. For example, creating a stakeholder map is something that the agile world definitely didn't invent. That was there before. It's a great thing. On the other, and that can help here in such situations too, no matter how complex things get. The more complex, the more this could even help. On the other hand, something like a work breakdown structure, which is also more of a traditional tool, I'm more and more seeing that disappear, and people are more and more saying goodbye to that, just because that doesn't help us often account for the growth in complexity. So the answer is also complex to this. It depends. I would make a case by case assessment and decision. And my recommendation is to work with a good agile coach who can help you here. Maybe also disciplined agile trained coach. And we do have coaching certificates coming in the near future for disciplined agile, so that we can really give people help here that are exactly in that situation, have to make this decision now, try to assess and then say, okay, and now what? So we need experienced people to help with that decision. It's not an easy decision, but yeah, and it's individual. But I still do think such a model helps us. Why? Not because it makes any decision for us, that probably no, but it can help us understand what our challenges are. If we think about, oh, that's why the other team is always having so much less problems. They're not globally distributed, right? For example, just to look at things and acknowledge them that are currently really challenging your team. This here can help understand the complexity, because it does grow as the more you move to the outsides of these axes.
I would just say it supports the decision which you need to take, and that's the important thing. And from my point of view, I wouldn't say that the middle is more agile than the outside. It's even more, in the outside, you might have a different agility than in the inside. So just going for the team size, which is more in the middle, you might have a scrum because the team size is small enough. How can we have a scrum team of 250 people? I would say could be a tough job to do that as a scrum master, for example.
Yeah.
And even to give you another example, if you talk about global distribution, I would say if you go more outside, more agility is better and helps. I see a lot of people who are kind of faced with having kind of same time zone, but being global distributed because all of them are now kind of not co-located, but working from their home offices. So if they already know how to work within a small daily stand-up basis or something like that, they can be kind of much more efficient than teams who have never worked like that and need to be transformed in that being in the home office. So from that point of view, I would totally agree with your "it depends" answer, because it really is dependent on the different scale and the different size. And yeah, from my point of view, that's quite a good thing. And we need to see how we can manage to come with all our content which we have about disciplined HR today, right? Antje, we have only these 7 minutes left.
I know, but I don't think
Too
it's a
much
problem.
questions.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that we're doing an introduction here. We're clarifying basic questions that everyone has when they look at this the first or even the second time, or are trying to understand this. So this is exactly what this session should be about. It shouldn't be about all my slides being shown. That's what way less important. Also, there will be a deep dive tomorrow, as I understand, where you can also see more details. There's so much to talk that never fits within 1 hour. So so much to talk about in Discipline Agile. There's one thing I wanted to take a closer look at, and I'm now going to jump over all of the slides. Let me quickly run through them. There's the DA mindset. You can look at that in the mirror board. Okay, but this is really, there's life cycles that you can look at. But if we're looking at all of those in detail, we will get to more discussion. So right now, one more thing I wanted to show you is process goals, because that, I think, no Discipline Agile intro should go without them. If I told you earlier or all throughout this session that Discipline Agile tries to give answers to teams' concrete challenges, then this is one way that Discipline Agile does it. And that gives so much better understanding if you've seen these. So I think, for example, Discipline Agile helps you think about solutions for a challenge by suggesting certain challenges that you might have. For example, you could right now be in a situation with your team where you really feel, let us see, that explore scope is something you're not doing really well. You're having problems to understand what the requirements are. You don't fully understand what you're supposed to be building and things like that. So you really have the feeling that before even starting to build something, which is here the construction phase, as it's referred to in Discipline Agile, you're still in the inception. You're trying to understand the product to be built. You have to better explore the scope, or you will probably something will end up badly. So you can turn to the book, Choose Your Wow, or you can also turn to the Discipline Agile web resources, online resources, to find such process goal diagrams that suggest to you certain things that you could do. So your team is having problems identifying the solutions, and you're now looking at the explore scope diagram. And for example, you can have some options for exploring usage that is more than just writing user stories, right? You already may be doing user story creation, but you can see here there's so many more things. You could try out to work with personas. You could try out different usage scenarios. You could try to create a user story map. And by the way, the bold ones, here, the bold entries are those that basically any team should work with, or at least start with. And personas are, for example, a practice where you think about certain user types and what their characteristics might be that help you create better user stories, maybe, but that not every team has to do. Only if you feel like you're not understanding your users very well, then persona might be something you can try to work with. So, and you can see all the other things that we have here. So it's like a decision tree, basically. You're trying to get through the options that you feel could help your team best. Again, work with an experienced coach to help you through that. Or if you're a coach working with an Agile team, you can really get educated in discipline Agile and try to get some understanding of how you can help people and guide them through this process of finding their best way of working, for example, by using these process goal diagrams. Yes, there are traditional practices in there. Exactly, Philip. We don't just discard everything, but we kind of bring it together into one cohesive, comprehensive model of working that is then individually tailored for each team. And that's what I like a lot about Disciplined Agile. That's what for me is the essence of it, actually. Okay, let me point you to the resources next, because seeing that we're almost at the end, this is probably something you want to see. So resources going down. Right, we have some. No, that's next steps. That's also good. Sorry, just going back a bit. Sorry, I have to jump a couple of slides. That's why it's hard to find. There it is. Learning more about Disciplined Agile. There is a DA Basics Agile online course that would be a great first thing to do. There are instructor-led workshops. There are, of course, the books. So, for example, the Choose Your Wow book and some others. And again, PMI members free download of Choose Your Wow. There is a DA microsite at PMI-Disciplined Agile. There's blogs at projectmanagement.com where also Scott Ambler writes, for example, and Mark Line writes, and Mark Lines writes, and they're also interesting, and some more. And you can find these resources here. And speaking of instructor-led training, there's also something I can show you about that special offer that we mentioned earlier today. Just if you're interested, we also offer training here, but that's only mentioned on the side. Okay. So we could address some questions on the go. Are there some more, Philip, that you, or maybe one more or two more that you think we should really look into?
Exactly. Good to ask for one question, because I think there's only one question left which we didn't answer, which is about, should this transformation be started from the bottom to top or from top to bottom?
Which one? The process goal?
No, the agile transformation, the disciplined agile transformation. I would say that, at least. So as I see the question was just, should this transformation be started from bottom to top or the other way around?
Oh, that's a great question. For me, it's again an opinion, but I like both. I like grassroots movements, but I am afraid that if the executives, if the management isn't in line with it, then at some point that might just again disappear. You know, it might all feel very stressful also if we don't get management support for what we're doing and how we're working. And I also don't like if management just decides, okay, let's become agile and everyone now tomorrow, right? You work like this. We're going to tell you how and you're going to do this. It also cannot work. Agility by order from the top, I think it also cannot work. If I think it has to be both. It has to be the willingness in the teams to really make this work, and it has to be the understanding and the initiative and the support of management to start agile transformations. But that said, most organizations already are in that process, more or less, at least many are. I think the idea of streamlining that a bit more is an important one. What would you say, Philip?
I would totally agree, and would say it needs to be the combination of both, so bottom and top. But for sure, it could be a kind of lighthouse projects or something like that, which are more the bottom approach, for example. But even if you have a lighthouse project, they might be seen by some C management or something like that to even support that initiative. So from that point of view, I would say it's totally fine. And I think even there's no right or wrong way. So even each organization needs to pick their way. But from my point of view, from my experience, the best solution would be a combination of both.
Yes, thank you. I'm being told to hand back. Sorry if we're
I'm
just
sorry,
a bit over time.
yeah, I have to stop you here, guys, because we have another session starting actually now at 1.
All right.
So if I can just share my screen. Okay, so once again, I would like to thank our event sponsor and our event partner, as well as our chapter sponsors and our chapter supporters. And if any of you or your company want to do any kind of activity or event with the PMI, just feel free to contact us anytime. And for all of you who were present today, this is the PDU, and I will also copy it in the chat so you can basically copy paste it. Just give me a second. Here is the PDU. And I will also copy paste you the information about the next session. And the session is Agile in the European public sector even possible? So even if you haven't registered, you can access it directly from the link I have provided in the chat. And once again, thank you guys for the great presentation. And hopefully we will see you in another event organized by our chapter.
Thank you. Thank you for
very much.
having us.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.